So, you've just developed a brand new product or service and you're so excited about selling it, but you have no idea how much to charge. Trust me, you're not the only person with this problem. Pricing is always a challenge, especially if you're new to business. I'm Kalila Reynolds, and it's time for another episode of Money Moves JA, brought to you in partnership with EXIM Bank's Business Advisory Service, giving you the tools to grow your business. My guest today is Gary Messado. He's a chartered accountant and also managing director of Balance and Compliance Enterprise. We'll get some great tips from him. Welcome to the program, Gary. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good to hear you're doing great, because COVID time, Omicron and all of this drama.
We're targeting entrepreneurs,
Yes.
in this forum, and I think for us, we have to become COVID pandemic proof, right? We can't let it stop the progress. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, we're talking about a very, very important topic today, one that I still struggle with, and I know a lot of people starting, even people who have been in business for a while, still struggle with, and that is how to set prices. How do you know what to charge for your product and service? So I'm just going to throw that out there to you and let you tell us.
Yeah. So off the bat, I will, for full disclosure, say that I'm still going through that process of trying to figure it out for my own business, as an entrepreneur of an accounting firm.
About 4 years you've been around now.
Yeah, about 4 years.
You're still trying to figure it out.
Still trying to figure it out. So I can definitely empathize with all the entrepreneurs. So I guess I would say I'm not coming here as the expert on the subject matter, but as a fellow sojourner, So if I were to share my journey, I would say, at the very beginning of my business, I was just glad to get business,
I can relate to that.
So the fact that somebody...
you want to pay me?
Yeah, exactly. So this is not a favor. You're going to pay me, right?
Yeah.
And so, obviously from there, because when you start, typically many entrepreneurs, they start small. So they start operating from, their home, a little home office situation, and your costs are very minimal. So truthfully, you're just trying to get a share of the market at that point. But, really, if you want to grow your business, you have to start to think about your price very carefully.
Yeah, because at that initial stage, basically everything that you bring in is profit.
Precisely.
Especially if it's a service-oriented business like accounting, what you do.
Exactly. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. If it's service related, you are the only expense.
Right.
And if you're starting it small, many entrepreneurs, they have a full-time job. So really, this is, whatever they're earning on the side is brought up when they're starting out.
Right.
But if you realize that you're onto something, and you want to grow it and to develop it into a business, leave your full-time job now to make a career out of your side hustle, you have to start taking price into consideration very seriously. I would say the first big thing I would have had to pay attention to was understanding the market around me, when you're trying to figure out your prices, because you can't set a price in a vacuum. You need to figure out, okay, who are my customers? And I figure, because I think the way to start a business is small. I think it's an ideal way to start, honestly, because it allows you to kind of understand where your sweet spot is. Who am I trying to serve in the marketplace? And in a real way, I think your customers will help you to figure it out, because the reality is, if they are supposed to take your product, they need to be able to afford it, So it doesn't make sense you set this astronomical figure that nobody can afford. So I'd pay attention to my customers. I would also look at, my competitors. So the people that I'm trying to serve, how are other people serving them?
Right.
What
do they charge?
Yeah, what's happening out there in the market? And I found out I was woefully lower, than my competitors. And I was like, no man, this has to change. I can't.
Which can be seen in both as both a pro and a con. So yes, you're cheaper, but then many times people equate price with value.
Right.
And they say if you're that much cheaper, then you must be that less good. You know?
Exactly. And truth be told, I mean, I think if you're starting out in an area and there are players in the industry longer than you are, then of course you're going to need to earn your space in the market.
Right.
You know, so I don't think you should necessarily be trying to be at the same point with your competition if you are starting out.
Right.
You know, but I think you should definitely pay attention to how people are responding to your competitors, because I think, you know, you will hear, you know, even through conversation, doing your own inquiry, where people may be saying, what I really want is a better quality service or a better quality product. So you may come to realize that what the market is looking for is not necessarily better prices, but the market is looking for maybe something more reliable, you know, of a better, you know, value, more convenient to them.
Right.
So that may help you to realize, okay, I shouldn't really be trying to be the cheapest. You know, this is really what the market is looking for. So maybe I need to really see how I can, you know, meet that demand that's in the marketplace.
Compete on value rather than price.
Exactly.
So in a product business, you're selling a product, is pretty easy to find out what your competitors are charging, because you can just go and buy the product or look at the prices of the product. In a service business, people tend to be hush-hush about salary, about how much they make.
It's true.
So how do you even find out what your competitors are charging for similar service?
And, you know, I have found that you just need to be curious, you know. I think you shouldn't be afraid to go and get the information. So I mean, one of the things I would often do is look at other people who are using services, you know, like mine, and find out what they're paying, you know. It's a little trickier to ask another service provider directly, you know what I mean? Lest they think that you're after their business. But I think you can definitely find out, you know. If you're interested enough, you can go and pursue the information, because it's a real market with real players. So, you know, the information is there. Another thing that I would say you should look at
Before you go there, let me just interject too, that if you have friends in the industry, you can ask them.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of tricky if they're a competitor, but if they're your friend, your brethren, and you tend to have colleagues in the industry, you got gone to school together or whatnot, can ask them what they charge.
True.
And that can at least help you.
Yeah. On that point as well, I think it's important for people to try and find mentors, particularly, you know, entrepreneurs, to find people who, if it's not necessarily the same thing, if it's something at least similar, there's a lot of value in that, because you can gain a lot of insight for people who have been around, who have been doing it for a much longer period of time, and hear their journeys as well, because, you know, who they are today and what they're able to charge, you know, for their product or for their service wouldn't have been what they were able to charge initially.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to benefit from getting wisdom from people who have gone ahead of you, for sure.
So the second point you're about to make.
So I was saying, you need to look at your customers, look at your competition. So really the third thing I was going to say is gaining an understanding of the supply and demand of your product or service and where you're trying to operate, because I think in a real way, that's going to affect the price that you charge. Because if there are a ton of other people who are offering the service and the product that you want to offer, then in a real sense, the market will dictate to you what you can charge, you know. But if there really isn't many people supplying what you have to offer, and so the market is underserved, you know, then that gives you a lot of room in setting a price for the market. So I think you definitely need to pay attention. So, I mean, for example, if you want to sell fried chicken, you know, you can find fried chicken around, on any corner. So I think you need to look and again, I guess all the variables work together, because perhaps what people are saying is every time I go to get fried chicken, the fried chicken run out, you know, everybody order it quickly. So then now you're figuring out, okay, how do I navigate, being a fried chicken service provider in this industry, you could probably charge more for your chicken if it is that you know that your chicken is always available,
Or if it's always sold out, supply and demand, like you mentioned. If more people want it than have that there is available, you can start charging a premium for it.
Right. Well, that's if it is that you're going to make sure that they will always get the chicken when they come to your location. I mean, which I guess where this takes us into, I think, is the whole matter of, based on your understanding of what's happening in the market, it will help you to determine what your strategy should be. And I think pricing is a critical part of business strategy, because once you understand the market, like we were saying, if it is that people are not necessarily looking for a cheaper alternative, but people are looking for, greater value, better quality, better service, then I think now, okay, this needs to be my strategy. My strategy is to improve on the quality of what's being offered, which then that brings in a whole other price dynamic, because oftentimes that means your input costs are going to be more expensive. If it is, using the fried chicken example, if you want to make sure that the people complain everywhere they go, the fried chicken finishes quickly, and you want to make sure that whenever they come to you, you always have fried chicken, that means that you're going to have to spend some more money up front on keeping a larger inventory.
Right.
So I think your strategy is going to dictate your price in a significant way in how you function in the market, because you may decide, I just want to be cheaper than everybody else. That's your strategy. So that you always have to be making sure that your price is
so you're selling on volume if you're doing
exactly
the cheaper prices.
Exactly. You say, all right, so my strategy is to try and get as much people through the door as possible. You have to understand, the market to know how you want to position yourself, and that in a real way, your price will determine that.
Right. Important points. So another thing that you mentioned that you have to take into consideration, you mentioned when you started hiring people, so you have to look at what does it cost me to make this product, right?
Yeah, so just going personally, in respect to that, we were chatting before the cameras were rolling a little bit, and the point we're making, and I'm sure entrepreneurs can relate, is when you start the business, you are invested. So you're just trying to grow this thing, and you figure, you'll benefit more and more as time goes on. But when you hire somebody, they don't have that long-term view of, okay, this company will be able to pay me well. God bless you if you hire people like that, right? And so in a real way now, you start to recognize that there are inputs into your business that you have to ensure that you're pricing, according to these input costs, which is a very interesting thing from an accounting point of view, because what happens many times is that people just run in business and they pay little attention to the accounting information, and so some businesses are running at a loss, because there's just money coming in and money coming out, and people are not necessarily taking a stock of how much am I spending versus how much am I collecting, So I would say, I think there are different ways that people look at setting their prices, and I would say the most fundamental place to start is to definitely do a budget for your business, to look and say, okay, what are my costs? What are my recurring costs?
Cover your expenses.
Yeah, so at the minimum, you want to make sure you can pay your bills, that is, I think that's a starting position. But then, of course, you want to make a profit,
right?
As a business owner.
How much profit should we be aiming for?
And so, that now will differ based on the industry that you are in as a business owner, because people in the food industry will tell you that their margins are small, compared to people who are trying to use a computer programmer, who is just a guy with his computer that can work in his bedroom. So his costs are much lower, but then not many people can do what the computer programmer does.
Exactly.
So for them, their costing dynamic is much different. They could probably be making 100% profit by the time they pay their internet bill, and buy their apps and so on. Whereas a person in the food industry, who has to be buying food, constantly, paying people to help them to cook, their profit is going to be much smaller. So it's really hard to say how much profit you should be making. There's a really good book I read. The guy's name is Michael Michalowicz. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Mike Michalowicz, yes. Profit First.
There you go.
I've had him on the show.
Really?
Yes, virtually.
Yeah, I need to find that episode.
Yeah,
That's amazing. That's amazing. I found that book revolutionary as an entrepreneur because, the mindset that you often have going into business, as we said earlier, was I'm just glad to get business and eventually, I will benefit from it. But when I read the book and I heard his perspective to say, no, you need to make sure you're making a profit. I thought it was, very powerful. And so, which relates to pricing in a very significant way. Because if you don't set the right price, then, that the profit will always be elusive. But I would say that would be the most basic level to start at in setting your prices, is working out a real budget for yourself.
Solid advice there, Gary. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. My pleasure.
And where can people find your accounting firm?
Follow us on Instagram, BACE, BACE_pro. Is an easy place to find us.
Here's a recap of Gary's key points. Supply and demand will help to determine how much you can charge for your product. Find out what your competitors are charging and use that as a base. Make sure you account for all your expenses plus profit in your final price.
That's it for this episode of Money Moves JA, brought to you in partnership with EXIM Bank's Business Advisory Service, giving you the tools to grow your business. Visit their website, eximbankja.com, for more information on their loan products and multiple services that you can access, such as their Business Advisory Service. Very, very useful product there. And also visit my website, KalilaReynolds.com, for a summary of this episode. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Until next time.